We're live.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Simranjit Singh. I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us. Today's conversation, part of our Sikhs in Action series, co-presented by the Sikh Foundation and the UC Santa Cruz Sarbjit Singh Aurora Endowed Chair in Sikh and Punjabi Studies. We're really happy to have you here for this conversation with Harsimran Kaur, who is the Executive Director of the United Sikh Movement. I'll tell you more a little bit about what we're planning to discuss in our conversation in a moment. But before I do, I just want to invite you to use the Q&A button to submit questions or any reflections that you might have during the discussion. And as your moderator for the conversation, I will do my best to get to them, to bring them forward, so that Harsimran has an opportunity to address them. We will be getting started now. The conversation is looking at how Sikh leadership begins with belonging, from campus sangat and student support to faith-rooted professional development and long-term leadership pipelines. Our conversation will look at what it takes to build the national ecosystem that our youth deserve. One where young Sikhs don't just survive the formative years, but emerge from them as grounded, purpose-driven change makers, ready to carry Gurmat into every arena of life. And so I'm joined with Harsimran Kaur, who is the executive director of the United Sikh Movement. They've been doing a lot of work in this area. The organization has. Harsimran has been doing a lot of work in this area. So I'm excited to learn from her. Harsimran, I'll invite you in and just say, great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Definitely. Vaiguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaiguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you for having me. Would love to share a little bit more about myself. My name is Harsimran Kaur. I'm currently serving as the executive director for USM, um, and I'm joining in from Sacramento, California. I can share a little bit more about USM and what we do. Yeah.
That's great. I'd love to hear that. Yeah, tell us a bit about United Sikh Movement. What do you do and how did it begin? What's the origin story for the organization?
Yes. So USM, I always tell students this as well, started out as a student project as well. And now it's this national institution for Sikh students to really grow spiritually, professionally, and personally in their leadership. USM started in Southern California with a group of students coming together from a couple of campuses and really wanting more for SSAs. Really, at that point, with the SSA ecosystem, there was no ecosystem. All of them were functioning in silos and kind of broken apart. There was nothing really bringing everybody together at the same table. And on top of that, a lot of the Sikh student leaders didn't have any resources or guidance to really bring Gurmat-based programming to their campuses. So often, Sikh student association spaces didn't really embody Sikhi, right? It became a social space, which again is important. That sense of belonging, that sense of community is the foundation for Sangha to grow together in their Sikhi. But even when Sikh student leaders wanted to incorporate Sikhi, they didn't always have the resources kind of laid out for them or really the guidance. A lot of the times we were seeing SSAs start from scratch. After a couple of years, you would have a really strong leader for 2 to 3 years. And when they graduated, we were seeing SSAs, though they've been around for decades, um, not really be able to sustain the efforts. And so that's kind of where it started. It started as bringing everybody together at the same table through an inter SSA conference in Southern California, and it's grown significantly from there over the last 10, 12 years. We've grown, we've kind of inched our way to Northern California, and now nationwide we have 40 chapters across the US in Indiana, New Jersey, New York, Texas, and all over California. So that's kind of where USM began.
That's wonderful. I'm really excited to learn more about the organization and the important work you all are doing. But before we even get there, I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got involved here. Did you encounter this while you were a student and then decide you wanted to work more with USM, or did you come across it later?
Yes, I actually joined as a student. I was in my second year of at UC Santa Cruz, and me and one of my colleagues had gone to the USM conference in Southern California, and this was the second one that they had held. And we went to the conference. We absolutely loved the Sangat, loved the space, and truly for the first time in our college time felt connected to something bigger. And so both me and my friend Gulvin Gaur, we reached out to the executive director and had a conversation about how we can be more involved. And we signed up as volunteers. And I've been involved in a number of projects since. I remember when I first started, I signed up for everything. I was super excited about a number of projects that they had. Um, and I was just that student that wanted to be kind of involved in everything. And from there have really grown to love the SSA space. Um, I got involved as the executive director a couple years in. So in 2020, I was given the opportunity to step into the executive director role. And while it was amidst COVID and board transitions with SSAs and like a completely virtual world, we still was able to take that leap, Maharaj Kirpa, and have been serving since. I would love to share a little bit more about even just when I went full time. I went full time with USM about a year ago, a little bit over a year ago. And before that, I had been in grad school for my MSW. So even throughout college, being involved in USM and SSAs, while I started in the medical route, I realized quickly that I wanted to do so much more. I wanted to do macro work. I wanted to do community work. I wanted to touch more lives than just one-on-one interventions with people in um, within whatever industry I go into. And so I went down the social work route where I could do direct service, I could do macro work, I can do meso work, and I can impact and be involved in community work in a different way. And so after I got my MSW, I actually got engaged, and then I started thinking about, okay, what do next steps look like? I was still the ED of USM, but I was thinking about, okay, what does growth look like in my industry? What does financial sustainability look like? And what do the next steps look like for me? And I had a plethora of opportunities within the mental health field as well. And it really took me about a year, a year and a half to take the leap of faith to put a pause on my mental health career and licensing to really go all in on the USM side. Because truthfully, in any other industry that we're existing, at least in the mental health industry, there's always need, and there's always going to be someone to fill in those shoes. Um, but for our community, it's really going to be us. We're going to have to step into those roles. We're going to have to make sure that these save us sustain. And while I could see crisis residential, the program that I was running in the mental health field, sustain and grow, and it'll be fine, right? Whether I'm there or not. I knew that USM, I felt the kitch to go towards USM. Um, and while I can, imagine crisis res doing just fine, um, I knew that I couldn't imagine a space uh, or the lack of USM, the lack of Sikh spaces. I couldn't imagine that a Sikh student is going into their first year, knowing nobody, not having Sangat, and not having something to lean into, someone to really hold, to be there as an older brother, as an older sister, as a mentor for their growth and really support them in their leadership. I think USM has given me a huge sense of purpose, something I can never get in any other industry. And prem for Sikhi that again, I would never have found without this Sangat. And so I just couldn't imagine a world where Sikh students were coming into their college spaces and didn't have the opportunity to engage in that. So I think that was really the tipping point where I just, had to pause and like, okay, one things have to give. And truthfully, like it can't be USM and it can't be this ecosystem that gives it. It just has to be the mental health world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's so interesting to hear you describe the pull that you felt. And I've had that kind of feeling in my own journey as well. And it can be really hard to make a decision like that because it's not necessarily secure. You don't know what the future will look like. You don't even know if it'll work out, right? And especially with a young organization. And I wonder, what was it about this organization that made you feel like it was worth taking that leap of faith, right? Like it's real risk, it's real sacrifice too. But I hear you talking about the value of creating a sense of belonging for Sikh students who might feel like, they don't necessarily fit in to the universities that they attend. It sounds like you had a pretty powerful experience personally around that, but maybe could you sort of dig into that personal experience a little bit more and help me understand what was it that was so important about what drew you in to USM? Was it, the relationships that you developed? Was it, some of the material that you encountered through this group? And yeah, whatever that is, I'm just super interested to know what it was that drew you.
Definitely. I think the Sangat is definitely something that has stuck with me, 10, 15 years, 10, 12 years later. Sangat, honestly, when I started college, even UCSC, I actually did know that there was an SSA, but I didn't really think that I would be as involved. I've always kind of seen myself or thought of myself as, maybe I'll do some stuff in the background. I am passionate about some stuff, but I didn't really see myself taking a leadership position in any way,
Mhm.
shape, or form, especially of a national organization. Let me tell you that. But the Sangat and the opportunities that I was able to encounter just within USM, students coming together, all passionate about the month, all wanting to do more and showing that there's so much more that can be done and that we can do it. That entirely changed how I saw USM, how I saw even my role as an individual in the month. And even just the Sangat and the relationships that I was able to build. A number of the SSA leaders and presidents at that time, we became so close. And even just the core USM Sevadars at the time. We're still in contact. It's become this tight-knit group year over year where we not only, move towards any sevas that we see in the month, but we're able to grow in we had the opportunity and the space to learn from each other and to grow in our own Sikhi as well. Um, I kind of grew up in Sikhi, right? Like my parents, they taught me Japji Sahib, they taught me Reras, and we went to the Gurdwara. I was part of Sunday school, but I didn't really, and I did take Amrit at a younger age. But I feel like the love that I was able to see and the other six student leaders that I found within USM and the way that we were able to ground our work in in that love and kind of move that community forward is really what made me feel like, okay, I belong here and really made me feel like, okay, like this is what sticks. This is what resonates.
Mhm.
And this is what I want to make sure that every student is able to feel. They're able to feel that they have a community, that there is this love for Sikhi, that there's so much to explore in that. There's so many tiny things that I feel like I learned from USM that I've just carried throughout my life, like doing ardas before anything really, leaning into Maharaj, having conversations with Maharaj, taking a hukumnama. And I think that's not only informed how we move through USM, but how I move through my personal life. And I've seen this grow for myself and for so many people around me. Even within like the core Sangat that I got connected to through USM, I see all of them blossoming in Sikhi in their own way, being part of other Panthik initiatives, creating organizations and filling in the gaps of the Panth. And so I feel like that's what really stuck with me is that passion for the Panth and really just that community um, and that love for Sikhi kind of growing that together. Because truthfully, like it can't happen without Sangat. I feel like we can do our own exploration, but the way that our own personal Sikhi journeys are amplified through our communities just has such a big impact on us. I don't know if that
Yeah.
answered your question.
No, it did. It's really interesting to hear you reflect on it because, the two things you're sort of tying together in your own experience is mental health and Sangat. And there's a lot of research coming out right now around connection or lack thereof and how much of an impact it can have on you. And as you were talking, I'm thinking of the line from the Guru Granth Sahib, bin paga satsang na labe, bin sangat mel parijay jio. And it's the I think typically when I think about that line, I spend more time on the first half, which is like the the fortune that it takes to meet your people, to find your people. Um, but the second half is what happens when you don't, and
Mhm.
you're stuck in, I mean, mal, you're stuck in filth. And what does that actually mean in our lives? And you know, Bonnie is often talking about our psychologies and our psyches and our experience in this world, and it's how painful it can be when you don't have that. And so I'm just sort of connecting the dots here, and I wonder if that's how you see. I mean, earlier when you were talking about your career trajectory, it was almost like you had to choose or you decided to choose USM over work in the mental health space. But I wonder if you see them kind of integrating in some way. And actually, that is what you're doing, trying to make our community healthier in some way.
There's definitely a lot of overlap. I think when I did kind of go all in into MSW, learning about mental health, getting my license. I saw how many overlaps there were between mental health and Sikhi and what Maharaj already teaches us. Like, you know, the importance of meditation, radical acceptance, you know, all of these concepts already exist within Sikhi. But in terms of sense of belonging, this is something I definitely took a deeper dive into within within my MSW journey, right? Like we were able to do a lot of research and kind of um, focus on topics that resonated with us and dive deeper into those for our capstone. And mine was entirely about sense of belonging and what that means for Sikh students and for Sikh youth. And from the mental health lens, having a sense of belonging and also believing in a higher power, right? Feeling connected to something beyond ourselves, those are two of the largest protective factors for mental health. And just statistically looking at the age range that we're serving, right? When we're looking at the teenage years, you know, 18 to 30, those are the times of our lives where there's so many transitions, so many changes, so many things for our youth to figure out, and really the formative years of someone's life. Um, and to have these protective factors in place, even just from a mental health standpoint, are absolutely huge. They're really game changers. And I think, you know, while I've seen that in my personal life and seeing the Sangat around me just flourish within USM, seeing it from a mental health lens just made it all come together and just made it make all like it made it make sense. I was like, okay, like that totally makes sense. And Maharaj has already been teaching us these things, but it's really interesting to hear from an academic standpoint as well. But definitely, I think a lot of what we do in creating community and empowering students and really giving them opportunities to lean one into one another and lean into Maharaj are all really setting up our entire community for resilience and to really ground themselves in Sikhi uh, during formative years, during so many transitions that
Mm.
they don't otherwise have the opportunity to do, right? Like if we look at our Panth as a whole, we have Sunday school, and that's really about it, right? After
Mm.
the age of like 12, 13, where are our youth going, right? There's nothing nationally working with our Sikh youth to create some sort of ecosystem and or any space for them to connect with their community, to really grow in their leadership, to grow in their Sikhi. And so we see this huge gap already. But if we didn't have that in kind of the college spaces, that's that's really just kind of letting our youth kind of fall off the cliff when it comes to their teenage years, right? Like we have to have spaces to capture them. We have to have spaces that they belong, that they can flourish in, and that truly they can build for the month, like, and they can see the importance of that. I think working with Sikh student leaders, Sikh students are real, well, students in general, youth in general, are really the backbone of so much movement and so much change in any community. And so it's really important for us to be able to invest in that and to create spaces where we're bringing all of these leaders together and all of their passion together. So yeah, from a mental health standpoint, definitely is very important to have that sense of belonging and for them to ground themselves in Sikhi and really understand what that means for them and what that
Hmm.
looks like for them. Because not every student has had the opportunity to even engage in Sikhi. I've seen
Right.
students that come into SSAs that have never had any, that don't know Gurmukhi, that don't know Punjabi, that haven't really had the opportunity to even to engage with Japji Sahib or Mool Mantar, or even knowing uh, some of the things that we might take for granted, right? And what does it mean to create a safe space for students coming from all backgrounds to take that next step towards their Sikhi journey? I think that's one of the crucial things that SSAs, that one of the crucial gaps that SSAs are filling, and that USM is filling in today's day and age.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, as I'm listening to you describe this, there's some more connections that I'm hearing around youth, and mental health too. We've been talking a little bit about, the health of the community, and it's not lost on me that as you're describing the nature of the work and your approach to it through USM, that you are addressing not just a age range, right? A group of people within our community who are most susceptible to mental health challenges, depression, suicide, and so on. But also nationally, right? This isn't just a Sikh issue. Mental health concerns are national concerns, and the kinds of numbers we're seeing around depression, suicide, et cetera. I mean, it's really important to be thinking about that. And then I'm also thinking about the other point you were making around the lack of resources and organizations we have that serve this age range, right? Teenagers and early 20s. And um, that also happens to be the group of people nationally who are leaving religion, right? The people who are least interested. And when I go to Gurdwara, like it's really noticeable, right? Like I'm often not the Gurdwara that I go to weekly, but like often when I go to other Gurdwaras, I'm the youngest person there, and I'm in my 40s. Like it's kind of, I mean, and then there are people with kids, right? Like I have my own kids, but like there's a massive gap between, the ages of like 10, 15, where kids can be forced to go to Punjabi school on Sunday. And then like your 30s when you are a parent, and then you're forcing your kids to go to Punjabi school on Sunday, right? Like, and so it's a really interesting challenge that we have as a community because we're not serving our young people, we're not giving them the resources they need. And kind of like anything in life, like if you are not getting anything out of the community that you're a part of, then you'll go find another community, right? You'll go find somewhere else to spend your time and make sure that you are receiving something in return for your time, right? And so it feels like that's also a really important value add that United Sikh Movement is bringing forward. And I'd love for you to kind of speak a little bit about like the intention behind engaging this demographic. You talked about these being formative years. I wonder if you might describe like what that looks like, in addition to what you've already said, but like why is this age group so important to engage with?
Because this is the first time they're away from home, right? They're away from
Yeah.
they're away from the systems that they've always grown up in. And truthfully, everyone's exploring. They're exploring what truly resonates with them and building the foundation that's going to carry with them for the rest of their life, right? I've seen so many students that again have not had that opportunity to engage with Saki, to have to really grow in that, to take the first steps, whether that's keeping their gaze, whether that's learning Gurmukhi, taking Santhya, right? Like taking whatever the next step is. I've seen so many folks come in that were not keeping their gaze and they start keeping their gaze, taking Amrit. And, there's so many different case studies in terms of just showing the impact of it. But in terms of the formative years, these are the first times that a lot of our youth are ex are thinking about things outside of what they grew up with, right? Um, and really figuring out, okay, what do they believe in? Critically thinking about what what resonates with them, what truly connects with them, and
Mm,
to them, right? And if they don't have opportunities to engage with Sikhi, have community, and really have opportunities to build their own leadership skills, if they don't have it in these years, we're really not going to capture them after, right? That this is really going to be the building blocks. I've seen again a number of the Sangat that I connected with within the first couple of years of USM, even 10, 12 years later, all of them are involved in some sort of Sikh organization, some sort of um, change making in their own way, absolutely doing amazing things and giving back to the community. But the seed that we sowed was 10 years ago when students really realized, okay, like one, there's so much value in student spaces, in youth spaces, and two, how do we invest into that? We have so many people that are successful within our community, right? Like we see all of our people in so many different industries at the very top of a number of industries, right? But what's connecting back to the community, right? And I don't think that's something that they're going to form, and they can, right? Like Maharaj Kirpa, like they can form that connection to the community and that love for Sikhi and for the Panth later on, but it's going to be so it's life changing if they have the opportunity to do that in their formative years, right? Because those are the building blocks that they're going to carry into so many different life decisions, whether that's, what partners they're going to choose, how they're what industries they're going to go into, but how they carry themselves in those industries as well. So uh, yeah, I feel like that time, why I call it the formative years is I really do think it is pivotal, even from like a development standpoint, where youth are figuring out their identity. And it's really important for us to show our students and our youth that Sikhi is part of that and how we can carry our Sikh values in everything that we do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as I'm listening to you, I was reflecting on my own, like where was I in that part of my lifetime and realizing that everything you're describing is something I've experienced to some degree, right? And I grew up in a Sikh household. I, learned kirtan and bhat and tabla and all that stuff growing up. Went to camps and, you know, understood Sikhi to some degree, but it was really in college when I started to I don't know what the right word would be, but like engage it seriously, like really try and like personally understand it. And I think in a lot of my own like self narrative, the story I tell myself is, I started college right after 9/11. I was trying to understand myself in relation to what other people thought about Six. And so it was very much like almost like a reaction to what was happening in society. And that story, I mean, it's true, but also, it could be presented as anomalous or exceptional, right? Like you need some big tragedy to spark that kind of self-reflection and like intellectual undertaking of like, well, what is Sikhi? What is this religion that I was born into and grew up with? And do I want to choose it for myself, or am I just inheriting from my parents? Like all these questions, and 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 I don't know if it's as like now that I'm teaching college students, right? Like I don't know if my experience was as exceptional as I kind of tell myself that this is a stage in life where, as you said right away, like people are away from home for the first time. They are away from the systems that have supported them. And so, like, what is their new source of support? But also, there's a freedom in becoming who you want to be or becoming who you will be. But that can go in any direction, right? Like, there's a real possibility that that freedom and you've seen it, I've seen it, where that freedom can lead to terrible choices and a downward trajectory, and it can lead to something beautiful. And so, giving people the kinds of support in that moment. You use the word pivotal, and it's like it keeps sticking out to me because it's like you pivot in one direction or another, right? Like that's what pivotal means, and it really can be the difference between where someone ends up in their life. I wonder if you have stories, I mean, in addition to your own, of working with students who like every year goes by, you're like a little bit further away from them age-wise, right? But like you've been doing this long enough now that you must have some experiences where you walk away being like, oh, this is why I do the work. Like this is really worth it. Like there's real value in what we're offering. Do you have any personal examples that really stick out to you when I ask that?
I think one of the more recent examples that kind of stick out to me is one of our Sevadars, Vaseline Benji. She's actually Geetani, absolutely amazing. And she attended our camp as actually a guest speaker. And coming out from that camp, just the love of the Sangat and the support of the Sangat and how empowered she felt um, being in that space, she actually went full time into Kirtan and accounts that space as that pivotal moment for her in her trajectory in Sikhi. She saw that this is a need in the Panth, and she knows that, she has so much amazing vidya, so much to give back to the community. But when she was working full time in her industry, that wasn't possible, right? And so even just seeing her take that full leap into Gurmat Sangeet Initiative and all the amazing work since then has institutionalized a 10-week course within the UC system that offers students hands-on experience with Gurmat Sangeet and brings in so many vidwans and amazing kirtanis and shows students the different types of Gurmat Sangeet that's even available and that we might not know about. Um, but yeah, this happened about I want to say this was last year, I think. And I don't know if Benji's on here, but it was it was amazing to see another person take that leap of faith for the month. I think that's the first that comes to mind. But like I've said, there are a handful of folks that even just from the camp, if I'm thinking just in the last year, that have started tying this thought for the first time. And I was literally in the room. One of the folks from USM conference she came up to us and she was like, "Hey, like I know you all tie this thought. I really want to try it. I've had this kitsch for so long. I'm still trying to practice my death. I'm still on that journey. I'm not 100% there, but I really would love to tie this thought." And it was just beautiful to be part of that moment because I know how hard it was for me to take that leap of even tying this thought, bringing physical um, representation of Saki into my life. Um, and that was 2 years ago, and she still she ties at this thought every day. And since then, I know of two or three more beyond that have started keeping their gaze, have started tying their this thought, have taken that step towards Sikhi. And every time I see someone transform in USM spaces, feel safe enough to ask those hard questions, to lean into one another to grow in their journey or to take leadership and really think big and create projects that might seem out of reach seeing students feel the josh to do that and feel like the onus to do that and even just on their personal journeys take that next step that always just there's not any there's no feeling that compares to that truthfully.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, there must be, countless stories like that. And it's funny because sometimes in this kind of work, right? Like nobody does it for the money, no one does it for the fame, right? It's not that kind of thing. But it's seva, right? I can hear it even as I'm listening to you that this is all like it's Bantik work, but it's driven by a spirit of seva. And I can see that. I appreciate that. I've tried to, and I feel very privileged to also have created a career and a life that is sort of built around Seva, right? So it's very special. It feels like a privilege in a lot of ways, and it can also feel difficult sometimes when you're working day to day and, especially when you're not programming and not meeting people and you're like, what, like, does this matter? Like, I wonder that all the time. And so those moments are really special and they don't come often enough, right? Like you just hold on to them and cherish them when they come. And I'm also wondering, a lot of the work that you all are doing, that's also intangible and probably hard for you to measure, hard for you to even like know that it matters. But then like, of course, these are things that matter. Like I'm thinking about the work you all are doing to build leadership pipelines and professional development. And I wonder if you might speak a little bit about like Well, what does that look like for college students, and how do you think about adding value there? Can you think of any examples there of, people you've engaged with that have come back and said, "Oh, because of USM, this is something that has really supported me."
Yes, as I was talking, I know a lot of my heart is at the Sikhi part, but there's so much that we do um, outside of outside of just Sangat, right? I think my first thoughts go into hackathon. We had our first hackathon this January in the Bay Area. And for those that don't know, hackathon is usually a 2 to 3 day sprint. Folks get into smaller groups. They choose a problem they want to address, and in those smaller groups, they actually create um, it, the solution, and they create some sort of product that reflect that solution, and then they pitch it at the end of the week or the end of the weekend. And it was so empowering to see well, one, a room full of innovators within our month, and but to speak to your part of like, hey, even after the event, uh, we have 4 or 5 of the teams that actually came into to hackathon, and the projects that they built continue to pursue that as a startup. So they're actually building out the projects that, they did in a 48-hour sprint, but building on those teams and building on those projects, and really feeling empowered to take that startup route, because we all know that that is not easy. But yeah, from the professional development lens, I think seeing students truthfully take a leap into the industry that they want to, and seeing that the skills that they learned at a USM event, even if it was for a weekend, actually changed the entire trajectory of their career, which this was the first time we had a hackathon. And I, we put the question out there in terms of, what tangible opportunities are you getting? But we weren't sure. We weren't sure if, out of 48 hours, what will truly tangibly come out of it. But it was that honestly kept us going. This was one of our first professional development events that we had fleshed out in response to conversations that we had with hundreds of students that year. And all of them identified that, there's quite a gap in professional development. And I know there's different initiatives out there, but when we're talking to the students, there's still a gap. These All of the opportunities that might be out there are not reaching the students that we're serving, or not reaching fully, or students feel like, they have to choose between SSA or a professional development club. And there's really nothing kind of bridging the two. And so, yes, obviously, like the hackathon projects that are going on into accelerators, interviewing with YC, really going all in on projects that came about within that hackathon, but really also seeing students benefiting so much from that one-to-one mentorship. A lot of students do circle back, or we'll reach out and be like, hey, like, where are you at with your project, and how are you doing? And getting feedback to continue to improve, and see the fruit of the seeds that we're planting. Um, and a number of them have also, have had doors open to them in industries that they had not expected before. A number of them have pivoted in different industries because of advice or support or mentorship that they've gotten, as a result of the opportunities that that they had access to within a USM space. So, from the professional development lens, I think it's already quite empowering to see someone that looks like you, that holds your values, and really is serving in amazing positions, in leadership positions, at top positions in the industries that our students see ourselves. Because honestly, like, our month is only a couple of generations in at the most, in this country. So it's really, really powerful to see people that look like us, that sound like us, that carry our values in industries we didn't even know we existed, right? So I think opening those doors up for students is quite powerful in terms of visibility already, and just showing them what's possible. Really, like, I think those are intangible, but from the tangible, feedback and experiences, just seeing the startups flourish, them going on into accelerators, them getting interviews at different companies is absolutely amazing, and one way that we've seen our professional development spaces truly change someone's experience career-wise as well.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And as you're sort of talking about, you've talked a bit about the value, the engagement. Now you're talking a little bit about sort of like the different kinds of things that come out of the work. I'm wondering if you might share with us a vision that you all have for the future of this organization. What do you hope that United Sikh Movement becomes, or what do you think the potential is here?
Definitely. I think there's so much potential. Like we said, there's quite a gap with serving the youth, and truthfully, no fleshed out ecosystem or really pipeline for the youth. I truly see USM as this national ecosystem that wherever a student, Sikh student is, wherever Sikh youth are, one, they have a place that they can lean into. They have a place that they can call home. They have somewhere that they can run with any project and have, all the support, funding, kind of in their back pocket, and have an organization backing them up in any Bantik initiative that they want to bring forward. And truly a pipeline. I see that our students to alumni to mentors and folks that are top of their industry, I see that USM is that pipeline. Between our chapters and between our alumni, I see USM being this larger ecosystem for Sikh youth and for the Bant that truly allows students to grow and have support at every step of their growth. And right now, we don't have something like that for the month, right? Outside of what USM is building. And so it might be harder to see, but I always lean into looking at other organizations and what they've been able to accomplish. I see MSA, which is, Muslim Student Association, and the ecosystem that they've been able to build for Muslim students and for Muslim youth. And I look at Hillel as well, right? If we look at the numbers, the Sikh population and the Jewish population numbers wise is quite similar, right? But the impact, the connectivity that they have in their community and the building blocks that they are investing in college life, right? They have so hundreds of chapters. They have full-time personnel on their campuses. They have physical structures within institutions and a physical presence within these institutions, um, that we do not have for the month yet, right? So I really see USM being part of the college institutions, Sikhi being part of college institutions, and wherever a Sikh student is within the country, for them to have every opportunity to excel, not only professionally, but personally within their leadership, and also spiritually, being able to have the opportunities to ground themselves in our Sikh ethos, in our Sikh values, so they're able to carry that forward. We've seen, again, like how other communities have created such a strong alumni network and such a strong presence in every industry, and they're paying it forward, um, and paying it back to their youth and to their college students, right? And right now, I'm not seeing that pipeline currently existing, and that's what I see USM becoming. It is that pipeline for Sikh students, for Sikh youth, kind of across the nation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I just as we're moving along, I thought I'd just say out loud to anyone in the audience, if you have questions or comments, feel free to drop them into the Q&A section, and we'll try and get to them. I have one more question for you that I wanted to bring up, and that's around challenges. Every organization has challenges. Um, every initiative or movement runs into challenges, and I wonder if you might share what comes to your mind when I say, what are some of the hardest things about running an organization like United Sikh Movement?
Yes, I think the structure of USM is quite different from most of the organizations that we see. Working with Sikh student chapters, we see a lot of things constantly shifting. Every single year there's a new board at every SSA. So truthfully, and even just capturing them, I think before we even started the live session, talking with the representatives from Sikh Foundation and even any other Sikh organization that we've talked to, they've struggled with connecting to the SSAs. And the SSAs are absolutely amazing, right? Absolutely love them. But it is hard. It is hard to mobilize within the youth, especially with constant changes. Uh, and thus far, right, we haven't seen any other organization or system to be able to do that because it's not easy. It definitely has to be by the youth for the youth, and like I can throw together events, I can throw together a conference, but what does it look like to truly connect to a new cohort every single year and to empower them to hold these spaces to really build out the save us that they want to see in the SSA space because it has to be student to student. So I would say the hardest thing is to that turnover within chapters year over year and re-engaging everyone and re-energizing them kind of right off the bat after meeting them a couple of times. We get started for the year and we build out sevas with the students, not just for the students. So truly being on the ground, truly having a presence and mobilizing the youth takes a lot of work. And I think unless you've tried it, you don't know how hard it can be when it comes to mobilizing the SSAs and the Sikh students. So I think that is definitely one of the challenges, and truly keeping things student run and reflecting an ever-changing population, right? The things that I think this is across Sikh student organizations, but the things that, it got our youth's attention about 10 years ago no longer captures the youth attention. So there's a lot of changes and constantly improving to continue to connect to the youth that we're seeing coming into the chapters. Those are definitely some of the challenges that just inherently come with the type of work that we do. I think one of the other challenges that come up for us as well is the people that we're serving are not the people that can financially donate to us in that moment, right? So it's kind of a divide in terms of like our ideal donor versus our ideal client in a sense, or like the Sangha that we're serving. And so really bridging that gap to ensure that the community outside of who we're serving, so we're present on the college campuses, we're present in the youth spaces, but how do we show the impact and engage folks outside of those spaces that aren't a direct beneficiary of the sevas that we do to give back into these spaces? And I think we'll kind of see a better flow as our alumni go into industries and remember the system that USM was able to provide. But since a lot of the folks in the industries right now, maybe they didn't have an SSA when they were in college. And for a lot of them didn't have USM or something kind of bringing everything together. So there's a little bit of a divide in terms of the Sangha that we serve and the Sangha that we can lean into and that can give to us to really support our sustainability finances wise or fundraising wise.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that insight. I've had the opportunity, I don't even know if I've told you, but to attend in a small way a couple of USM events in the past year. One was some workshops in San Antonio at the Sikh Dharamsal. Another one was I think it was called the Ivy League or Sikh Ivy League conference in New York City. And I just have to say that it's the kind of thing that I wish I had when I was younger. We created our own small little student association in my college, and there wasn't really even a network around Texas then as there is now. And to see, at these events, the energy, the excitement, like you were saying, like a lot of it is Sangat, but a lot of it is also like a cultivating a love for Sikhi that you can't put a value on. So anyone who's tuning in and is able to support and can remember what it looked like 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago when these kinds of organizations did not exist, and how much easier it would be, how much more enjoyable it would be if you had a group like USM, and also recognizing this important point that sometimes you serve communities that aren't able to financially support the organization that's doing the work, and so finding other people who believe in the mission and are willing to support. And so if that's you, I think it's a good place to look for some of your this fund. So. Anyway, Harsimran, I just before we go, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share any last words of, wisdom, of hope, of, passion. Is there anything coming to your mind that you would want to share with this audience that you haven't had a chance to say yet?
Um, at least for students, if there's any students or youth kind of hopping in, even folks that are kind of in their alumni, that truthfully, like, I don't know, I don't say like anything is possible, but I do think anything is possible in the
Mm,
and that Maharaj will sustain it. I think a lot of the times we have the forna, we have the idea, we have something pulling us towards some seva. But our logical minds or maybe the doubts of sustainability might come up. But I feel honestly, like I feel like that forna or that seed is also planted by Maharaj. And so it really is our onus to put our best foot forward into pursuing whatever seva truly resonates with you. Whether that's youth development, or whether that's an accelerator or Sikh nonprofits or Gurmat Sangeet, like whatever your seva is, to truly sit down and see what that looks like for you. Because truthfully, like no one's going to come and do that work for our community. It's really on us in our own ways, right? Like we've seen folks that might not have the capacity to really build out an event, but they have the capacity to give us feedback on our hackathon rubric, or to sponsor one part of the event, or to provide one-on-one mentorship to a handful of students, right? Like whatever that seva looks like for you, to know that there's always space for it, and there's truly a need for it, and then it can sustain. So if there's any sevas that you feel like can fit into either the ecosystem that we are building or any existing sevas within the month, to truly not ignore that spark. I am so grateful that while I was, running away from it for a little bit because I thought, the mental health world, and I saw my trajectory more sustainable in that sense. Um, and it took me a while to take that leap of faith to really put all my eggs in this basket, and to really put all of my effort into USM and to see where it goes. I know it's not easy, and I'm not saying that everyone, leave their careers and go for the fun. If you can and if you want to, definitely do it. But whatever that seva looks like for you, to really put our best foot forward in hashing that out. And if there's a seva that you want to build out, for example, like we have this LSAT prep course going on right now. We have a number of folks that are practicing in the law field that are giving back, hopping on every other week to provide mentorship to a small cohort of students that are preparing for their LSAT. It can it can feel small, it can look small, but truly the impact is so much more, right? I think we can all think about one to two, even small moments that have created so much big change for us. So truly, like no save us small. Whatever you have the capacity to do for the month, definitely pursue it. Definitely pursue whatever idea or forna or seed that Mara just planting in our minds. And if there's anything again that you feel like fits into this larger ecosystem or fits into the Sangha that we're serving, we're more than happy to have that conversation and build out that seva together.
yeah, thank you, Simran. That's really beautiful. Well, I just want to, in the spirit of your last comment, I just want to thank you for doing what you do. For the community, for the band, for the young folks. and doing it in the way that you are, so thoughtful and so in line with all of your values and what you've described today in terms of what animates you and how you think about your work is really it's really inspiring to me. So I'm really grateful. So thank you.
Course, yeah. I think we have a
Yeah.
question. In
Oh, great. I'm sorry I missed that. Oh, yeah, question came in right at the buzzer. Well done, Kiki. In a world full of divisiveness, how do you combat that working with USM?
um, yes, there's definitely a lot of things that can divide the month, right? In USM, we really focus on the 99% that brings us together. And because we're serving the youth and we're serving them at a time that they're exploring Sikhi and what that means for them and how they want to practice it, we're definitely quite intentional with keeping our spaces open and understanding and safe for folks to explore that. So there's not truly like one way of practicing or one set of beliefs or um, really a box that we have our students kind of function within, right? Um, we really focus on not the kind of different nuances or the things that might be different between the ways folks practice the key or the things that might divide us as a month. We really shift our focus from all of that into what truly grounds us, right? Like Sikhi, the values, um, and what we can all kind of agree upon and kind of the baseline that's going to connect to anyone, regardless if they grew up in Sikhi, if they didn't grow up in Sikhi, if they have certain um, beliefs within Sikhi or within the community, right? There's so many different things out there. But really finding that common ground and mobilizing people around that is what we do. For SSAs, even, we don't tell them what to do and what not to do, or to, have a certain stance or not have a certain stance. We let them explore that for themselves, but we bring them together on a common ground, is that we all want to do something more for the month. So within our Sikh students, and our leaders, truly grounding them in kind of a higher purpose, um, and something broader that connects us all outside of the divisiveness. And truly, it's actually fun. Um, we actually have some activities as well that we embed within our training that we do with SSA leaders. And this was developed by Anandpur Institute, and it's the state of the month activity. And every group is given, a set of network cards that they start with, and they're given an objective that they have to reach, and certain resources that they're starting with. And then they're given these debate cards where they can debate um, another group or another like team, and they can get money and resources for their existing for their objective. And they're given about an hour and a half. And all the teams are working together, negotiating with each other, and trying to get as many of those like as much of the fake money to reach their Pantego objective. And these are all save up projects, right? And it's so interesting because why those debate cards are even incorporated into there. And sorry if you're a Sikh student and you're going to do this in the fall, don't listen. But why those debate cards are actually embedded into the game is because they're a waste of time. They often, so many of the teams spend so much of their time and energy trying to get really small amounts of resources um, from one another, debating controversial topics with one another, and further dividing their sangat, where the whole point is really to come together. All of the teams, if they come together, they have all of the resources and all of the networks between all of the subgroups to reach every single team's objective. And the debate cards are truly just a distraction. So this is the first activity we do with every SSA leader coming into USM in the very beginning of the year. And this really sets the ground for collaboration and for thinking about the bigger picture when it comes to Sikh student leaders coming together, and also thinking about, okay, are these divisive topics or stances really serving us? Or are they just distracting us from our bigger goal as a Panth? So huge shout out to another Institute for creating that activity, but it has been the core of how we start our SSA leadership retreats because we went through that. We actually did this activity as an organization within the accelerator program, and it was so cool. It was so cool because everyone gets really excited and really amplified to get their own objective, but when we sit down and see that, oh my gosh, we could have all won. It really shifts the room. So that's those are some ways that we help our students really work past things that might feel divisive and truly ground ourselves in what really brings us together in the bigger picture in the month.
That's really lovely. Thank you for that perspective and even the practical examples of those resources because it's good to hear that and to even start imagining, well, in the way that Kiki was asking, like how do we do this in real life with communities, and you all have tried and tested models that we can all incorporate. So yeah, that's really wonderful. Well, I will wrap us here and just remind everyone that today's conversation was part of our Sikhs in Action series, co-presented by the Sikh Foundation and the UC Santa Cruz Sarbjit Singh Aurora Endowed Chair in Sikh and Punjabi Studies. So thank you everyone for joining, and Harsimran, special thanks to you for joining and also for all the work that you do. So really, really great to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Really, really grateful for having this opportunity to really be part of this conversation and to share with the larger Sangat the work that we do and how we can all invest in the youth together.
Yeah, I love it. All right, take care. Waheguru ji ka khalsa.
Hai Guru Ji Ka
Waheguru ji
Khalsa,
ki fateh.
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.